MetaDetective and the data utility are two accelerators that we have for RSA Archer. And they go hand in hand, although they are separate products overall. So MetaDetective is really a fundamental capability that's missing from RSA Archer, which is it allows us to completely evaluate the entire meta information about the Archer environment. So all of the metadata associated with your configuration, the data feeds, all of those different pieces, the MetaDetective is actually a tool that'll go and evaluate all that information. It normalizes it and organizes it into a way that we can then use through the MetaDetective application, or from the MetaDetective database that's associated with it, we can actually use that to do reporting or extend it into other capabilities. So it's really a very powerful tool that we use for a number of different scenarios within Castle Hill to help our customers be more efficient and effective with the Archer platform from a DevOps perspective, and also from the ability to drive better reporting and other capabilities. And that's really where the data utility comes into it. So MetaDetective understands how Archer is put together, how you've structured your applications, how those applications relate, all those different pieces. The data utility then reads that information and can actually go and help you to extract information or generate information into the Archer platform in a very high volume. So this is very different than the data publication service and some of those capabilities, which work in many cases. But if you really want to be able to look at or gather information out of the Archer environment, the data utility is a much more efficient way of doing it. It's something which we can help you to build as part of your implementation. So MetaDetective increases productivity in a very, very straightforward way. First is that MetaDetective, because we can actually do two things with it. You can take a snapshot view of your configuration, right? So it looks through the entire instance and says, this is now take a snapshot of all of where the fields are, what the calculations are, what all the different relationships are within your applications. Then you can take another one 5 minutes later, or a year later, or a day later, whatever the time frame is, and you can actually compare those two things. So think about that ability, right? So if you can actually look at what your existing application space looked like yesterday, then you can see what all the changes were to the application space today. You know exactly how to test the application, you know what parts were touched. You have assurance that people didn't accidentally touch other things within the application that they didn't mean to, or there's something didn't get promoted that was an accident. And ultimately, you're able to really manage the platform and drive that ability to be confident that when you're moving things between environments or you're testing things between environments, you know exactly what you're looking at. What's similar actually to the productivity, because now we can actually have an understanding of who made changes and what changes actually occurred in the environment over time. So if you've got something that goes into production and you want to see where that change was introduced, you can go through the MetaDetective information. You can actually see the historical changes that have happened to a particular field or an application, or cross-reference or different relationships within the application. And so that's really very effective in helping you to drive that auditability and the historical review over time to see how your applications are changing, see where changes are introduced into things, instead of having to try to hunt that down through manual efforts and just guessing. It makes your DevOps more efficient because, again, you're really now managing the environment. So just like you would with a code-based application where you're able to see where changes are happening, where you can actually see who made those changes, what the impact of those changes are, MetaDetective really drives better DevOps capability because you're not guessing, right? You're able to actually have this as a qualitative and a quantitative piece of information to understand the differences that have happened in your environment. The data utility is something which allows us to either bring a lot of data out of the Archer platform or put it into the Archer platform. Now that's something which some different capabilities in Archer are already able to do. The difference between the data utility is that the data utility is also based on MetaDetective. And so we're not actually guessing at where fields are, where cross-references are, where the relationships are within the applications. We're using MetaDetective for that. And so if you want to bring out all the information in your issue management platform for a specific type of issues, you want to extract that information to your reporting environment or to some other capability, it's a very straightforward activity to do with the data utility because it's reading the metadata about your environment through MetaDetective. And now we're able to only bring out the information that we want. We're able to bring out that information knowing that we're actually getting the full set of data because MetaDetective understands where all of those different relationships are. On screen, there may be a cross-reference to a particular field. MetaDetective understands that, goes out to the other application, grabs that piece of data, and brings that out as part of the data utility extract that actually is created.